Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Project Stargate Fringe Research. I'm your host, Mark Brenner, and today I have my co host, Jake Malcolm, with me. Jake, how's everything going today, sir?
Everything's been going great, man. Just another beautiful day in Georgia. Finally got that warm weather coming, so hopefully it's time to get out in the field a little bit.
Man, I tell you what, I've been thinking about that a lot. Actually, over the past few weeks, I haven't really had a chance to talk to you about this in our conversations, but I'm really excited about the prospect of our having an expedition out there in Dawson Forest, and I don't want. But the thing about it is, we've discovered that the possibility, the very strong possibility of what is going on in the Coal Mountain Triangle. Some of it we know is going on, and some of it is something that I suspect is going on. Back to one of our last podcasts where we talked about it. There's all those elements we talked about: the satanic cult, the all the haunted locations. I'm really excited and very interested in diving deeper into this area and exploring to see what all is going on.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and I think we're going to uncover a lot of things, and we're probably going to find out a lot of places are haunted that we wouldn't have expected. In my research, I won't spoil anything, but in my research that I've been doing into it independently, that has been so far my conclusion that yeah, we're gonna come upon quite a few surprises.
I believe that too, absolutely. Now, in our conversation previously we had earlier, you were telling me about an area in the north end of the Coal Mountain Triangle area, or north. I think it's somewhere close to it in Blue Ridge, with some research involving a church and a very very peculiar situation in the history of North Georgia. What can you tell us about this research?
Yeah, so this is kind of a situation where you could almost picture Hatfields and McCoys meet the Salem witch trials, and then sprinkle in a little bit of Native American legend, and you would basically get the story that is of the Tilly and Stanley family up in Blue Ridge, Georgia.
Cool. Um, and this involves in this ball involves a witch trial like situation as well. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. So the basically how it started, we can go back to how everyone kind of settled to where they were if we wanted to, which really isn't that important. What we need to know is there are two settlements at the time. One is the Stanley Gap settlement. The other one is the Tilley family settlement. The Stanley Gap settlement um, were made up of families of mixed race. So you would have white and Creek Indian families integrated. The actual white settlers came from the Carolinas down to here, co-inhabited with the Creek Indians. Actually, got along very well, intermarried, created a community. The second one would be the Tilley family, who relatively similar situation, immigrated here or settled here rather, set up a church not too far away. Um, the families began feuding as they often did back then, and basically it all came to a head. Well, let me go back. There was also a woman named Elizabeth Bradley. She was a Creek Indian medicine woman. Some called her a witch doctor. From accounts that I have found, she was respected and feared in the town of Stanley Gap. She had, I believe it was 10 children, 6 daughters and 4 sons. Two of the daughters actually went, one married a Tilley, one married a Bradley. Um, of, of course, being feuding families, this was not going to end well. I think we've all seen quite enough Shakespearean plays to know what happens. Unfortunately, it came to a head one day. The Stanley family showed up to the Tilly Bend Church. Um, Ended up shooting up the congregation, killing
Wow.
not only the pastor and other congregates, but Elizabeth Bradley's daughter, who was attending the church. Um, After that, the Tilleys retaliated. They snuck into the Stanley Gap settlement at night, killed several men, including Elizabeth Bradley's son-in-law, who was in there, who her daughter married, in front of her daughter. This caused her to actually have, I believe it was a stress-induced birth at the time, and die in childbirth.
That's terrible.
Very, very tragic. And unfortunately, it does get worse. So Miss Bradley, as I'm sure any mother would be, was extremely distraught. It placed a curse on both of the towns.
Goodness gracious. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there a way you could, just for listeners who are watching the video version, can you,
Sure.
is there like could you pull this up on Google Maps and show us where this area is? And maybe if you have any pictures you could show of this church or this area, maybe you could show us what, kind of give us an idea of, and describe in a little bit of detail for the listeners where this is in North Georgia before we proceed.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. I'd be happy to. Let me see here. I know we have had some issues showing off my my screen here, so let's see if I can do it yet.
Well, if you can, I think I can definitely pull it up.
Let me see if I can do it here.
And for you,
so this is.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say this is going to be in Blue Ridge, Georgia. Relatively rural part of Georgia, and I forget what that river is that it goes by. I forget the name of it. Let me see here. And we're probably, let's see.
Don't sweat it if you can't pull it up, because I'm sure I can pull it up.
Yeah, let me see if I can get it here. Let's see. Can you see anything?
Not yet. I don't see anything just yet.
All right, let's see here. All right, how about now?
No, I don't see anything yet. Let me see if I can pull this up for us real quick.
Sure. Sure.
I've got Google pulled up here before I start my screen share. And what would I want to search for? Also for the listeners.
Yeah. So you would want to search for Tilley Baptist Church.
Tilley Baptist Church.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. I'm going to begin screen share. And also, again, for the listeners who are listening to this, we're pulling up some pictures of Tilley Baptist Church in North Georgia. And for those of you watching on our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see what we're talking about. And for the listeners also, we'll try to be as descriptive as possible for this. So here we go. Without further ado, let's go ahead and pull this up.
Sure.
There we go. Okay.
Yep. That's it.
Am I good? Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to click on the images here.
Sure.
Let's start with this. This looks really neat.
Yeah, so it really is a beautiful church, actually, a beautiful representation of an old settlement church.
Wow, there's a website, Historical Rural Churches. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so the church is actually still active today.
So they actually meet and have a congregation that meets on Sundays, or at least every other Sunday?
Yes, sir, they do. And as far as I'm aware of, the Tilley family is still attending, and they may still actually own the actual church itself. That part I'm not sure of, but I know that Tilleys do still attend.
You know, I'm looking at this picture. This is a very picturesque. There's so much beauty in North Georgia, and it's hard to
There really
imagine
is.
sometimes that some of this devious and bizarre phenomenon that is occurs up here. It's really hard to imagine. There's so much beauty up here, especially around the Appalachian Trail. But what we're seeing here for the listeners, this is just a little. Looks like almost like a log cabin esque looking building. When was this built? Do you know off the top of your head?
I actually do. For some reason, I know. I believe it was 1850 the church was built.
Wow. That is really cool. That is beautiful. Let's see what else we got here.
Yeah,
It
sure.
looks like we got a little graveyard out here.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Um, so that will play into the next part of the story.
Okay.
Play into the curse part.
Let me skip by that for just for
Sure.
right now. Hang on.
Sure.
Let me exit out of this so we can look at some other stuff. This is really pretty. This
So
is really cool.
that photograph right there that you see, go up the photograph of the black and white of the two people.
This one.
Yep. If you click that
Okay.
one, I believe that is. So one website says that is Elizabeth Bradley and an unknown man. The other one says it's her husband. But as far as I know, that woman on the right is Elizabeth Bradley, basically the protagonist in our story,
Okay.
the supposed witch.
Oh, so this is the alleged practitioner right here. This lady here that I'm pointing out
Correct.
with my. Now is that let's go a little bit deeper for a second, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Uh, Elizabeth Tilley.
Yep.
Do you, based on what you have learned, if you have enough information to make this hypothesis, was this just a situation you think like up in Salem where there was probably only a few people that were really practicing witchcraft, and she was just maybe like them? Do you think she was accused of it falsely, or was she really practicing witchcraft or doing something devious, or was she just practicing witchcraft and just trying to keep to herself? Well, which one of those do you think it was?
So I say witchcraft and I say witch trials just because I don't believe there's another word for what's going on here. The thing that we have to remember about Miss Bradley is that she was a Native American medicine woman, witch doctor, whatever you would say. So that
Right.
part is we can confirm. The next part of the story, that part would go back to the headstones, and this is probably the saddest part of the story. Very unfortunate. So she supposedly placed a curse after she lost her daughters and her grandchild, along with other people that she had known and come to know in the community. Placed a curse that each child from each settlement that would be born after the incident, after the feud, would be stillborn. And for a year, each child in each settlement was stillborn. And that's why there are so many unmarked small graves or unnamed graves in the cemetery.
Jeez. Let's see what else we got here. This is a
Yeah,
nice
sure.
website. This is a well put together website. And just
It
for the
is.
listeners, this website is www.hrcga.org. And you can look at this is for the Tilly Bend Baptist Church that we're talking about. Proceed.
Yeah, so let's see here. I'm trying to make my screen a little bit bigger here as well. So let's see. Yeah, so this headstone, I believe, I can see the last name Long there. I'm not sure which Long it says. So
Polly C. Long
yeah,
is what I have. Polly C.
sure.
Long is what the headstone
We'll
says.
get to her in a little bit. She's actually does play a part in the story. But anyway, we got a little off track there if we want to take a look at some more. All right, perfect. So this is Miss Bradley's grave. This is Miss Bradley's headstone.
That slab.
That
Okay.
slab right there. It's actually inscribed. If you go there, I believe it was recently replaced. Actually, that might be her footstone. Now that I'm looking at it, She does have 2 stones there. But underneath that tree, Miss Bradley was buried. Now, her death and burial, came out that she put a curse on the town. After about a year of stillborn babies, the townsfolk found her, brought her to this tree, which we can see in the background here, in the middle of the graveyard, a large old oak tree. If you go there in person, it's huge. They hung her in the tree, and they buried her right where her body fell.
We should take a trip up there sometime, by the way.
I've taken multiple
film
trips up there. I can tell you it's probably the most active place I've ever been.
Wow.
So she was buried facing west, while all the other headstones in the cemetery are facing east, because she was a witch.
Now let's hypothesize again for a second.
Sure.
Do you think that she directly caused those deaths of those infant deaths or those newborn deaths, or do you think that that was coincidental, or do you think she may have turned to the dark side?
So, given the time period of this and the the conditions where they were, this was extremely rural, out in the middle of nowhere, 2 settlements. I wouldn't put it past there being some type of illness to go through town that would, cause stillbirths. What that would be, I don't know. Also, just generally giving birth at the time was extremely dangerous, and who knows what these settlements were like, what type of food or medical care these settlements had at the time. That I would have to say, just about with everything, I would say it's up for, some people say up for interpretation. I would say it's up for investigation.
Wow. Interesting. Let's see what else we got here on this website.
Yep.
Oh, that's back. Let's see what this headstone says. Gilbert Falls. I can't see it very well. Gilbert Halls, I think it says.
I believe you are correct. Yeah, Gilbert Falls, born June 9th, 1794, died July 14th, 1880.
And it also says in there for the listeners, War of 1812. This person apparently was involved in that conflict. Wow.
So there are numerous veteran headstones in there. Actually, there are a couple from the War of 1812 along with the American Civil War. So it's a very, very historic church and cemetery.
Yeah. So go ahead and continue. Yeah. I didn't mean to get us off track.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
You're fine. You're fine. So anyway, so just before she was hung, they were getting ready to drop her. She said and swore that she would be back. Screamed it, as a matter of fact, some say. She died. They buried her facing west. Christian burials, typically you faced east, so she was facing west. The deaths continued to happen for another year, and a year to the day later, they actually hung her, I believe it was either her sister-in-law or daughter-in-law, Mary Tilly Bradley, hung her in the same tree a year to the day later. And then after that, they did not give her the west-facing burial. They gave her an east-facing burial because they thought that Elizabeth had used her as a vessel of some sort to continue the evil.
Wow. Based on what you know now, I have studied the occult. I want to bring my screen share down just for a moment, okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Based on, I've studied the occult to a certain degree over the years, but I'm not very familiar with this burial stuff. Can you elaborate just a little bit more on that for our listeners and for myself, actually?
Sure, absolutely. So back then, and I believe to this day in some churches and religions of Christianity, The Bible states that when Jesus returns, he'll come from the eastern skies. So when you die, you are buried facing east. To bury someone facing west is, I don't know if you would consider that maybe a bad omen, or almost like in ancient Egypt when you would deface someone's grave and statue after they died so they couldn't make it to the afterlife. Basically just saying that she's buried here. She's not one of us. She's, not Christian. She's, black magic, etc. So.
I know, enough about Native American culture to know most the medicine men and medicine women, they were very good people.
Very peaceful.
They were very peaceful, and also they, most of them were people who had a genuine love for and compassion for other human beings. It's very, very interesting, and I love Native American culture. I love to learn about it, but then it also is a dark side to this.
Sure.
When we're talking about if one of these medicine people, for lack of a better term, and I don't mean any disrespect for the listeners out there, for lack of a better term, but I understand that in some circumstances, these people, if they decide that they want to turn to the dark side, they can become a skinwalker. Just a side note.
I'm pretty sure we're not supposed to say that word, or is that the other one I'm thinking of? I'm going to hedge my bets and say neither. But yes, I have heard that, and who knows, that could very well have been what she meant when she said, "I'll be back. I'm going to return." And one, who knows if that could be in some other form or not. But that's something I had never thought of before. I think what we're seeing is definitely, though, a case of someone who, like Elizabeth Bradley, she was a member of the community. Sure, she might have been a little bit feared for what she did just because it was out of the normal. But, being a medicine woman or witch doctor, you're, still providing good to the community.
Right.
But when that community, turns on your loved ones and your family, you'll probably snap, and you'll curse and do what you can do to get back at them for taking that from you. And for that, I would say I couldn't blame her at all.
We're all human, man.
We're all human. Human. Absolutely.
That sounds very. I know a lot of innocent people who were killed over the years, just merciless killed. People who have never, very innocent people, even teenage girls years ago. It was just horrible. Even if they were witches, that's murder. That's plain cold-blooded murder. You don't murder.
Absolutely.
It says in the Bible, "Thou shalt not murder," and I hold that to my heart. I really do. But so she is hanging. They're hanging this lady who was a medicine woman, and she utters a curse of sorts to these people and to this little village or whatever it was. What happened after that?
So what happened after that is the infant mortality rate did not drop. It continued. So that is when they thought that her either sister or daughter-in-law, I don't remember off the top of my head, was the vessel in which Bradley had come back to exact revenge. She again was hung. The daughter or sister-in-law, whoever it was, she was given an eastern-facing burial, as they did not see her as an actual witch, rather someone who was possessed by a witch.
Wow. Is this kind of like this almost has like a Bell Witch type vibe to it.
It does. It's got a little bit of everything. You've got the hysteria of witch trials where people were just, looking for any reason or solution You've got the Hatfield McCoy style feuds going down in blazes with gunfire. Um, you do have, Bell Witch or Blair Witch going on.
Sounds like a
And
shit
then
show.
it is, and here's the funny thing about it. It's one of the only paranormal hotspots that is more active now today during daylight hours than it is at night.
Let's hold that thought for later.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
have a thought. I actually have a thought that I've been thinking about this kind of along those lines. What kind of
Sure.
paranormal phenomenon are people have? What's going on out there like today?
Yeah.
And how has it
So
increased over the years?
yeah. So if we go back, you had pulled up that headstone. I said we can we'll talk about that later. Polly Long. I don't know if she was a witch or not. But supposedly, if you go to the cemetery, you say her name, you talk about her generally, whatever, you'll start to see what people call spiritual lights, what you and I would call orbs. In the tree lines and around the cemetery. Now that's during the day. If you say it apparently enough times, just like some other words that we've talked about, you'll see an apparition run at you and then dissolve before it gets to you.
We should do some EVP sessions up there.
Well, that's the thing, and I was kind of running against the clock. I've captured 3 EVPs up there, actually.
Really?
I have 2 of them.
Get out of here.
2 of them fairly clear voices. We were the only ones up there. So one of them, I forget what the question that my friend was. It was something along the lines of, what's it like being buried here? What's it like being dead? What's the afterlife like? Something like that. It's not very clear. It's a little gargled, and it could be through biased ears that we hear an EVP say, it's not so bad, I guess.
Correct.
We took that, right next to Polly Long's grave. We got another one there. Again, next to Polly Long's grave. I should preface this by telling why we were at Polly Long's grave over Elizabeth Bradley's at this point. We had a spike on our EMF meters, a large spike. Now this is out in the middle of the woods. You have to take several dirt trails to get there. There are no electronics around, so there's nothing to spike an EVP. We were maintaining a pretty low level until we got to her. EMF, until we got to her grave where it spiked. So that's where we began the questions. The other question, which in hindsight probably should have been our first question, we asked who's here with us right now. The recording responded back with what sounded like it's Polly.
Wow.
Now I will find these, and they will, once I find them, I'll send them to you. We'll figure out how to get them up on the next episode.
Well, when we go, maybe when we go into our second
go to
segment,
break and
maybe if it's not too much trouble, maybe we can find them and you can email them to me. I'll play them.
I know where at least one of them is, so I'll send you that one, and that's this one. So we were in the cemetery, walking through. We weren't asking any questions. We were just walking through, and you can see three large men walking through. 2 large men, me being one of them. I had the camera, then 2 others on the camera that I was filming. Those were the only people in the cemetery at the time. And as I pan my camera over to the tree where they're standing, right next to Miss Bradley's grave, we hear a very, on EVP, I didn't hear it at the time, but only on the camera, you hear what sounds like someone taking a sharp breath or gasp as they get under the tree.
Really?
Yes.
Now, how many people did you have when you were out there doing this on this day where you caught this EVP, this possible EVP? How many people did you have with you? How many people's on your team?
3. So it was I and 2 others.
And are these people that you've gone out with before on several occasions?
Yes. One of them I think I've mentioned was my good friend who I also went to explored the Dawson Forest with. The other gentleman was a friend of his who was getting into the paranormal side of things. This was, I think, his third investigation. So we kind of knew what we were doing at this point, and know what to look for. And myself with an audio background, going in, I can find when something's just an audio glitch versus an actual recording.
Wow. I don't mean to keep getting us off track. I'm so intrigued by this, man.
Well, you
have the best stories, man. I mean, you've done I can tell you have really done a lot of research in paranormal Georgia.
I appreciate it, man. It's been a hobby for a long time. We're actually right on track. I was actually just getting ready to talk about the hauntings up there. Those EVPs. Other people, like I said, it's odd. It's a place where if you talk to people, if you read online, you read with other people, most of the activity is happening during the day.
That's interesting.
Full body apparitions. People have spotted up there, several of them. One of them apparently looks just like Miss Bradley from that photograph. There's also an apparition of a young boy whose name was, and you'll have to pardon me here as I cheat with my notes.
That's okay. That's what they're for, right?
Absolutely. There we go. Keith Stanley, a young boy who's apparently buried there. You see his apparition, and apparently, I've read two stories. Both of them, relatively the same, except for the point of what he looks like. Some say that he's kind of, hazy. You can see through him. One just said he looked completely solid. The stories go that he will approach you and tell you he wants to tell you his story, and if you listen to him, right? If you listen to him and follow him, he supposedly will lead you to one of the supposed witches' graves, where you will feel a tugging sensation at your feet, like something's trying to pull you down.
Oh, that's creepy, man.
Yeah,
that is
creepy.
I would poop my pants, dude. Y'all would have, you and Greg and Vince and everybody, whoever's with, would have to change my diaper after that. No doubt.
Just don't follow them. That's the key. But we have heard about that. I haven't seen any apparitions up there. I've definitely heard, things that sounded almost like voices, but when you're out there and it's so quiet because it is so silent up there in the middle of nowhere, your mind can really, really easily play tricks on you. So mainly what I've gotten out of there is sound. Other people, they have gotten, orbs. They have gotten fog, just like mist in the photographs, faces in trees. Stuff. Yeah. So other people have gotten tons and tons of evidence up there. So I'm not the only one.
That is so remarkable, man. The crazy thing is, Jake, I've other than 3 years I was in the military, I've lived in Forsyth. I lived in North Georgia since 1999. Why is it that I've never heard of this?
You weren't talking to the right people.
Exactly. I mean, praise God, man. I'm so glad you are with us.
I appreciate it. I do.
This is now what I want to do for the list, excuse me, for our listeners and our viewers on YouTube. Pardon me. Sorry. I don't mean to cough into the microphone. What I'd like to do real quick is I'd like to pull this place up on Google Maps. I just want to see. I want to get an idea of where this is. I'm just curious to see where it is in relation to the Cold Mountain Triangle.
Absolutely.
Let's see what it says. Let's see what we can find. Direction.
And what I'm actually going to do here, I am going to reach out while you're doing that to someone who runs a Facebook page on the Chastain House, and which we can either cover that in another segment or do that in another show, and the Tilly Church. I just have to ask him a quick question to confirm something real quick about these notes.
That'd be really cool, man. I think it would be well worth us taking a trip up there because look what I just discovered.
Absolutely. Let's see
Tilly's
what you got here.
Baptist Church is right here. Now, for those of you who are listening only on Spotify or Amazon Podcast, this is really close. It's not that far. This place is not very far from the Georgia and Carolina. I think that was the North Carolina state line. I think that, yeah, it's North Carolina. It's close to both North Carolina and Tennessee. So we're real close. We're close to just south of a little town called Mineral Bluff, and it's just not very far at all to the northeast of Ellijay, Georgia. Now, what is Ellijay, Georgia? Ellijay, Georgia is at the very north point of the Coal Mountain Triangle, according to my theory. Now, this right here is probably, I would say, I don't know. I would say it'd be about a 25 minute drive tops from Ellijay. So this is right there around, very close
right at
to
the tip.
The tip of the Coal Mountain Triangle, and I find that intriguing.
Absolutely. It's the cherry on top.
That it is, man. I say this is really cool. Any other details or comments you want to make on this?
Yeah, so there is a secondary location involved in the area up here. Actually, that's just what I had to message my contact and confirm. I'm still waiting on confirmation. There is a house with a bit of a storied history up there involving the Civil War, post-Civil War Reconstruction, etc. And I believe it was one of the houses in the Stanley settlement that was part of the raid. That part I'm not sure of.
Really?
So that's what. Yep, absolutely. And I do have. It's called the Chastain House. I do have some stories about that if the time does call for it. But,
yeah. As a matter of fact,
yeah.
why don't we get to that? Why don't we go to break real quick, and when we come back, let's talk about that, and let's talk about. I want to talk about a little bit about Skinwalker Ranch too.
Absolutely. While we're on the topic of these types of urban legends, I think absolutely.
Definitely. You're listening to Project Stargate Friends Research. I'm here with my co-host Jake Malcolm. This is your host Mark Brenner, and we'll be right back. All right, and welcome back to Project Stargate Friends Research. I'm back here with Jake Malcolm, and we've been talking about these haunted locations in North Georgia, including the church and some other things. And we've got some incredible evidence we're gonna kind of go over here in just a minute. But before we get back to business with that, I wanted to make mention. I failed to make mention to you earlier, Jake. I joined MUFON a couple months ago. We have me and some of the local members in the Georgia chapter. We have led by Ralph Howard, one of my new friends. That he's a member of MUFON. He's actually in the middle of writing a book right now. I wanted to make mention of him because I really enjoyed getting to know this gentleman, and there's some other great people in our we have bi-weekly meetings over Skype or Zoom, and when we have these meetings, we do it for 2 or 3 hours, and man, the conversations we have are fascinating. But we're thinking about, I pitched the idea to them about maybe all of us getting together, the group of us, and maybe doing a UFO roundtable podcast.
I'm down.
Yeah, I figured you'd be. I figured if anybody would be down, you would be. And I'm sure Greg and Vince would be down too. And by the way, they're doing well. They're doing really well. They haven't been able to be with us in a while, very much lately. But, life catches you by the jewels and you just got to roll with it sometimes. But they're doing well. And I just wanted to tell everybody about that. And I'm doing a little bit better with my health issues, so I'm ready to get back into business here with the Coal Mountain Triangle, North Georgia area, and these haunted locations. Jake, bring on the spooky woo, my friend.
So over the break, I actually was able to miraculously find two audio files in the terabytes and terabytes of files that I have that I would classify as probably some of the best proof I have in the supernatural, and that would be three EVPs that we had discussed in the previous segment.
Man, I
And
tell you what, let's jump into one of you. Do you care if we play a couple of them?
Go for it.
Uh,
Play them all.
all right, so here we go. I'm going to start. I'm going to start with this one, and I don't know. I'm hoping and praying that the audio will go through on the podcast. I think it will, but we'll see. I'm hoping it will. And I apologize, listeners. I am very technologically uninclined with all this stuff. The old I used to be, I'm not near as good as I used to be. Let's just put it that way. But here we go. Let me pull up one of them here real quick, and I'm going to screen share here as soon as I get logged in. All right. Now then, let's see here.
Mark, if this doesn't work, what I can also do, or what we can also do, is just put these clips up on the YouTube channel for people to watch the same time this airs.
Yeah, you know what? Why don't we do that? Why don't we?
Yep.
Well, I tell you what, we'll do that. Let's do that instead, because I've heard two of these, and maybe we can go through and just give a description, a detailed description of these EVPs, and then we can. I'll hand it off to you from there.
So I think we can. My recommendation would be have the listeners pause at this point, or the viewers. Down below in the description, we'll put links to the EVPs. They're a total of about a minute. So listen to those and then come back here and join us.
Yeah, and is this is it on your YouTube channel?
It's going to be at the end of tonight.
Okay, that's perfect. So you can just put a link to that'd be better, so they can check out the rest of your stuff on your channel.
There's not much on there, but absolutely.
Oh, but there will be, sir.
There will be.
Anyway, we were getting before we went to break. We were talking about the church. We were talking about the witch, and we were talking about
the Chastain house as well.
Yeah, we were just getting into the Chastain house. Let's roll from the start. What can you give us?
So, while I'm still waiting, because I still don't think I've gotten the confirmation here. I'll go with what we know and then put in what I've heard as rumor.
Okay.
So what we know is the Chastain house. It's you could probably pull up a photograph of it if you wanted to. I'll do my best to describe.
I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah.
Let me pull that up and I'll screen share for our viewers.
So and Mark, in this instance of the Chastain house, there's also going to be some instances of a character that we made that has supposed psychic abilities.
Ooh, you have me really intrigued here, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
here we
yeah,
go.
right.
I've got Google. I've got the Chastain house here. Pull up on Google. Now, let me know when my screen's visible to you.
So it's gray to me right now.
It's gray to you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let me stop. Let me try this again. Let's try this again.
Sure.
It's probably something I did wrong. All right, here we go. What do you see? What do you got?
Still gray.
Ugh. Okay, I found the Chastain house, I believe. Hang on, just looks like a house with three pointy tops on it.
That's it.
Okay, I'm going to pull this up. Here's what I'll do. I'm going to pull this up, okay?
Yep.
Let's go ahead. I'm going to pull it up on this website. I'm on accesswdun.com. And then it looks like there's a video to watch here. that's 2 minutes long. Let's see what this is like. Let's see
Is there
here.
any way you can share that?
I'm trying to. Let me try.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is not working. This is really bugging me out. It's like when I get into this really deep stuff, sometimes something happens. I mean, it
Hit a
could be
speed
user
bump.
error. Yeah, but
Yeah, we get
sometimes it's
excited.
almost cryptic.
Maybe.
All right.
Still gray, my friend.
Man, I don't know what is causing this.
Well,
Oh, well.
anyway, if the house is actually a very simple layout if you want me to explain it. So if picture a kid drew a house, right? So you walk in, there's a bedroom, or I don't know what the rooms were originally used for. There's a staircase in the middle. There's a room on the right, a room on the left. Go down the hallway, underneath the staircase, room on the left, room on the right. Right. So 4 rooms laid out in a grid with the hallway going down, staircase in the middle. Top floor is an exact copy. All right. So this house was built. There were no bathrooms. There was an outhouse. They did have a well. There was no kitchen. Very, very basic house. That doesn't matter.
That's what it looked like. It looks very old. And what did you? And when was it built?
Don't know when it was built. I know our story is going to start around the Civil War.
So 1800s.
So 1800s for sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
So the house began, I believe, I'm not sure if it began as someone's house or a hotel, whatever it began as. It ended up as a well, at one point it was a hiding place. People were harboring Civil War soldiers in there, hiding them, and they're actually in the house still, in the closets, trap doors that you can open up and look down into. It then became a hospital. I forget if it was the Union or the Confederacy that used it as a hospital. So as we talked about, we've got that grid layout, the box, the 2x2 grids on top of each other. Walking in the front left room, I believe, would have been an operating room. The front right room would have been the morgue. You go in there now, and there are still blood stains on the floor from the Civil War.
Oh man! And this is up there, not far from the last location we talked about.
No, so I'll get into pretty much what it is. What I'm waiting on is to hear if this house was built as part of the Stanley settlement that we talked about earlier. I'm thinking it came later after that, either later or earlier. I think they were not in the same time period or location, but that I'm not sure of, because there is I do remember another haunted location in that area that has nothing to do with it. So anyway, so this house was used as a hospital. There's still blood stains on the hardwood floors in there. After that, after it was a hospital, they had refurnished it the way they could. I should also note there was also upstairs where there were hospital rooms and doing amputations. There were blood stains, and of course back then you would just throw the limbs out the windows. Not the most sanitary, so you can imagine there's still. Anyway, so they covered the floor, did whatever they had to do at that time period. Ended up turning the home into an orphanage for those refugees of the Civil War. So that's pretty much the background of the energy in the house. The story, the legend that like I said, I'm waiting to confirm on if this part is true from my contact up there at the Chastain house. The story goes that was supposedly post-Civil War, post-orphanage. That was the part of the Stanley settlement and the actual house that Elizabeth Bradley's son-in-law, was murdered in.
Gosh. Okay.
So So it's had this connection. Anyway, so we come to modern day. You pull up to the house, and it looks like they're in the middle of renovating it. But it's been in the middle of renovation for years and years and years and years. And the reason for that being, as we found out when we spoke to the caretaker of the property, who was a very kind gentleman, who did not live in the house, didn't want to go in the house. He went in with us the first time. The second time he did not. Claimed to have some, I believe you use the term PK abilities, communicating and seeing spirits in the house.
Sounds like an Edgar Casey type thing, a little bit.
I'm not sure who that is. I'm sure I should.
He was a medium, and he was like they call him the sleeping medium. It was really, really interesting. I think this man had a profound Edgar Casey had I think he was definitely an adept clairvoyant and had precognitive, seemed to display precognitive abilities, extraordinary ones.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about this gentleman. He was a bit of a recluse in the way he lived. Very nice to us, but not someone who I'd want to go pounding on their door, at any time without advance permission. But here we ended up meeting him. We pulled up to the Chastain house, and we had heard there was a caretaker on the land. And as soon as we, opened our doors, there's several other buildings on the properties. And as we opened our doors, he opened his door and walked out. He said, "You boys are here to see the house, aren't you?" And we said, "Yes, sir, we are." He said, "You just come from the church up there." And we said, "Yes, sir, we did." And he goes, "You wanted to see if it's haunted up there?" He said, "My name's," and I'll leave his name out of it, "but my name is so-and-so. I'm Park Creek Indian. I'm John Doe. I'm Park Creek Indian." Was it Creek or Cherokee? Either one. And he gave us this little background that he has some precognitive remote viewing abilities. Even thinking about it, it's kind of making the hair on my arms stand up.
Wow.
And he looks at me and he said, "You boys were over there by the tree. You sat down on the bench, but saw it was broken and stood back up."
Dang.
Okay. So anyway, he takes us into the house, walks us into the house. When you walk into the house, sawhorse in one of the rooms. There's building material all over the place. It's torn down to studs. He said, "We've been trying to renovate this place, hire people out to renovate this place, but no crew will stay longer than X amount of nights. They all run out and they leave all their equipment. We just save it here for them in case they come back." So there's all these tools that have been left behind in there.
That is crazy, man.
He takes us into this one room where they had found, when they were pulling boards off the walls from the upstairs bedroom that was part of the orphanage at the time, they had found some little pieces of a little girl's clothing in there, right? Along with a board that someone had hidden in there that was, used at some point or another in the house. But apparently, after a certain point, if you had signed it or scratched your name on it, you would die on the way home.
Ouch.
It was covered in names and everything like that. And
that's creepy.
Sure enough, I'll have to find a picture. We took a picture of the, board, and sure enough, most of the people died in car crashes or related incidents. So that was a later on incident. I don't know what that has to do with the house. If that was, used in some type of something or another, who knows? Anyway,
could be some occult. It could be something like an occult ritual of some sort. Maybe something esoteric or something.
And it could be wrong that they were all car crashes. I could be wrong about that part. I just remember looking a few of the more recent ones up because they're all signed with dates, and sure enough, after those dates, those people died fairly soon after.
That's creepy.
It is, but we go upstairs. Anyway, the place is gutted. He says, people don't come in here, people people who come in here don't stay very long. They get run off by the spirits. They say there are things upstairs running around in the attic. They say they hear voices, all this stuff. So anyway,
That's
we're like,
creepy.
sure, unlock the door. Let's go. So he opens the door. We go in. My friend who is with me splits off. I go with this gentleman upstairs. We go upstairs and he sits down and he tells me that, he's like, here, have a seat. And we sit down on this church pew up in the, back room. He said, this is one of the church pews from the original church that was shot. And in fact, there were actually some names carved underneath it from the congregation. So how they got that in there, I'm not sure. He said he was sure it did trigger some energy in there. In the room, he said, now all these toys in here, this is where a majority of the kids slept when it was an orphanage. And there were a bunch of toys that people had brought. And he said, this ball, if you feel the temperature of the room, and this is Georgia in the summer in the first trip that we went once in the summer, once in the fall. No air conditioning, anything in this house. This ball was ice cold to the touch.
Well, really? Is it just the object? Now, let me ask you something. Was it just the ball itself, or was it the area around it?
So you could definitely feel the coolness radiating off the ball as you got close to it. But that could be, again, because it, hot, humid, muggy Georgia summer up in the mountains. So that could be just evaporation of some type of condensation, or who knows. But I do know it was cold, but that wasn't the crazy part. He said, now if you kick this ball anywhere in this room, it'll roll back to the same spot. I'm like, no kidding. So he kind of taps it with his foot and it rolls it around and it rolls back to the same spot. And I do the same thing and it rolls back. So I'm thinking the floor is warped, whatever. So he goes, okay, I'm going to let you boys walk around, be safe. Just come get me when you're done. All right. Thank you. Call my friend upstairs. I'm like, hey, check this out. He's like, no, whatever. So we're kicking the ball and I kick it a little bit harder and it rolls a little bit harder and comes back and he kicks it a little bit harder and pick up the ball, and I throw the ball against the stone chimney that's in there, and the ball bounces and it bounces and it bounces and it rolls right back. Floor could be warped, who knows, but it was definitely a weird experience where you're like, this is weird.
We should get it'd be cool if y'all would have had a level by chance to see it to test out how flat it was.
I wish I had thought about that. I was more, interested in going and getting some EMF from the areas where the blood stains were, which the place where we got the most spikes, it was really weird, was on the staircase. That's where most people said they felt some type of presence was going up the staircase. But other than that, that's the story of the Chastain house. There are still, in the barn out back, there are still bullet holes from the American Civil War back there.
Wow.
I think they patched them in the house because they wanted to make the house, recently, this is why they were remodeling it, they wanted to make it a bed and breakfast. That's when they uncovered the blood stains and all that fun stuff. So yeah, it's really an interesting place to go to. I wish I got more evidence there, but we were running low on time and didn't get to spend as much time there. But I'll see if I can get us an invite back.
Man, that'd be awesome, dude. I would love to go up there and take our gear up there. I am so looking forward to learning from you how to use some of this equipment properly, like the EMF detector. I know I can use the Rook. I've got the Rook. I just, if I was going to right now today, I would use the Rook, but I have my one with the digital readout that's more comprehensive. I got all these toys and half of them, I don't know I still have to learn how to use them properly. So that would be a great opportunity. Something like that.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, when we're coming back or going towards that trip, we are going to pass just one more stop that you might want to take a stop at, and that would be the Expedition Bigfoot, the Georgia Bigfoot Research Center and Museum, where they're actually in there doing DNA tests and stuff like that. So
we got to go there sometime.
Absolutely.
Maybe we could do
Absolutely.
some interviews. Maybe we could interview some of the people who are the curators or whatever. You know.
I think they'd love it. So I think that'd be awesome for sure.
I am very interested in cryptozoology as a whole, and especially Bigfoot. I tend to with the exception of the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade, I generally keep the Bigfoot research community at arm's length because of the chaos that is frequently associated with it. Like David Pilates, that's a great example. He had to, if he does another one of these big conferences, he has to have armed security there and everything. It's almost like terrorism in a way.
Right.
It's insane. Whew. Didn't mean to get off the beaten path on that.
Good.
I tell you what, man. North Georgia is just is becoming. The more I research this area, I've lived in for a long time, for several decades now, the more fascinated I am with all the stuff that's underneath my nose this whole time. It's just fascinating.
Yeah. It really is. People always think of when they think of Georgia and being haunted, the first thing that comes to their mind is Savannah, of course. But up north, there's definitely our fair share of hauntings going on, and just strange activity in general. Cryptids. We've had numerous Sasquatch sightings that are pretty world famous up in North Georgia.
Can you talk about a few of them?
Uh,
Can you talk
I
about
don't
a
know
couple of them?
I don't know them so in depth. I know that there was one that they spoke about at the Bigfoot Research Center, that got some pretty great news. That's all I remember about that one. The other one was there was a sheriff's deputy in, I forget what the county was. I believe it was up in Blue Ridge somewhere up in that area. Was driving and caught one on his dash cam crossing the road.
Now I heard something about that. I think
Yeah.
I think I've seen something on social media about that. That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy at the time. So there's all sorts of stuff going on, whether it's connected, whether it's not connected, whether some of it's real, some of it isn't, and uh, you know, some of it's just could be flares in the sky, some of it could be visitors from somewhere else. We don't know, but it's all going on in North Georgia.
It definitely is. Amen to that. It definitely is. I you know, the more that we dig into this tonight, for example, I am more convinced than ever of my theory on the Coal Mountain Triangle. I'm more convinced than ever. But I mean, there's so much going on around here. It's a phenomenon. Of its own. It's like places like Skinwalker Ranch. It's like the Bridgewater Triangle. It's like the Bermuda Triangle. It's like the Great Lakes. I think there's a Great Lakes Triangle or something like that. It is a phenomenon.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I definitely want to save some material, but I do have some other personal experiences and stories that fit into that triangle. And once we start to look at them, maybe I'll put a map together with we'll go full conspiracy theorist and I'll buy the red thumbtacks and put them in all the spots, and we'll see how they all conjugate together.
Can you give us just something a little to chew on?
Yeah, so there is
Thank you.
there is a church in Canton, Georgia, and
Yes, I used to live in
yeah,
Canton. I think I know what you're talking about.
okay, so
But continue.
yeah, with a supposedly haunted baptismal pool that some say is a portal to the underworld or to hell. We have gotten
Wow.
EVPs there as well.
So
Well, I
you've been
would,
there.
I have. I have. I wouldn't say I've gotten an EV. I don't know if you would consider it an EVP, but we'll wait to the next session to talk about it.
Okay, fair enough.
And listen
Fair
to
enough.
it. So, because I think if those blew you away, I think this one will really blow your mind.
We need to work on getting a. I have access to build a basic website. I think what we ought to do is get that kickstarted here pretty soon, and maybe we can write, you and Greg and Vince can write articles from time to time. I suck at writing, but Vince he's a journalist. Greg's good at writing in general. He's a good writer. He's written some cool stuff, and as articulate as you are, I would imagine you do pretty well with it as well.
I appreciate it. I do enjoy writing, so I would really really be happy to help there, especially writing about stuff like this. So to help other people kind of grasp and understand what we're getting at and talking about.
It'd be fun. I mean, I've paid for it already. I mean, we might as well. It's through Podbean.
Yeah.
We can do it through Podbean at podbean.com, or we can pay a small fee and get our own domain. But I think we should consider this. I think it might take a little bit extra effort, but I think it'd be worth it. And we can post articles. You can put pictures, EVPs if you want. We can put some really cool content into it related to our project.
I'd even be down to put some tutorials on how to use gear on there for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
that'd be fun. I mean, that's why I love Project Stargate, man, because I mean, you get the fellowship is great. We are researching right now. This isn't just a talk show in the traditional sense. This is a research project. We are documenting it, and hopefully you the listeners can learn from what we're doing. We're very passionate about this. We do it because it's a labor of love. We enjoy it. I think I speak for my colleague Jake. I think it really is a labor of love. At least it is for me. And I've just it's great to do this, man. It really is.
Yeah, man, it's great, and I'm happy I can be on board, especially with the Skull Mountain Triangle. That's definitely going to be an interesting subject to delve deeper into and kind of go through with that fine-tooth comb. And for me, that was my main stomping ground, that whole area growing up. So it'll bring back some memories. So definitely doing this out of a passion for it.
Absolutely, man. There's a topic that I kind of wanted to chat about for a few minutes.
Yeah, man.
Much like my theorized Coal Mountain Triangle, there's lots of it. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of other locations all over the Earth that are similar to that, and I call them I call them I like to call them triangle areas or portal areas. Either way. You got places like the Coal Mountain Triangle. You got the Bridgewater Triangle. What is going on in these areas? Is the veil thin? Are we looking at something that or maybe we're playing with time and space, or somehow is messed up? Or what do you think?
Man, I was really hoping you were going to ask that, and I think that would be my answer. That if anything, because as we look more into this, we're not just seeing UFOs. We are not just seeing, in certain areas you do just see UFOs. You just see ghosts. You just see whatever. But in these areas, you're getting everything just kind of in one mixture, one medley, if you will.
The hodgepodge.
The hodgepodge of the unknown. And that could be, if we look at multidimensional theory, or even, some type of multiverse theory, where, we could look and see that there are beings that are traveling through dimensions, or when we pass away, we could possibly go to another universe or point in time or dimension. And if there's any sort of rip in all of those fabrics, then there could be a potential for everyone to just kind of cross over, almost like almost like Spaghetti Junction down in Atlanta. Think of it. You've got
Hopefully,
all
it's a
those
lot better than
overpasses.
Spaghetti Junction. Hope
Uh,
it's a lot nicer than Spaghetti Junction. You know,
Absolutely,
anybody who
absolutely.
lives in and around Atlanta knows what we're talking about.
But
You
yeah,
know,
so you've got all these paths crisscrossing, and it could be, that they're crisscrossing, and it crisscrosses right through our, point in time
so
or space.
I have a comment on that, on what you just
Yep.
said. I got a return comment, and this is I apologize for being a little long-winded here on this one. I'm gonna have
I
to.
think I've been long-winded for about an hour and a half, man. You're good.
So, okay. First of all, I want to preface with this. As far as my spiritual beliefs goes, I was raised Judeo-Christian. I still hold on to those beliefs. I don't go to church anymore, but I very much hold on to those beliefs. I'm very spiritual as far as that goes. I'm spiritual in general. So I want to preface with that. So some of what I'm about to say might make a little bit more sense to you and some other people. I just want to share these thoughts. So also, I want to say this too. When it comes to science, I have a very interesting outlook on science and spirituality. I think that I believe that God and science. I believe God created science. I believe science is our reality. It's our way of trying to explain what happens in our reality. I think that's what science is, and I believe that our Creator, God, set all this into motion. I could take a whole podcast and explain my hypothesis with this, but either way, over the years, I've studied a lot about near-death experiences. I'm getting to a really intriguing point here, so bear with me. The near-death experience. How familiar are you with that phenomenon? First of all,
I've heard of people having it. I can't say I've ever had a near death experience. I can say, that I've been in situations where I was being close to a near death experience, but I that's about my extent of knowledge.
you'll have to share some of that with us sometime.
It's no big story, man. It's just really bad
Gotcha.
case of food poisoning.
Oh
It's
man.
honestly all it was,
Oh
man.
no, man. There's nothing to share there, man. Whew.
Dehydrated me down to the point where yeah, it was pretty bad.
Good. Thank God you pulled through, buddy.
Yeah, man, it was not fun, but
Oh man.
hey,
So,
no
anyways.
no more medium rare Chick-fil-A for me.
Oh no, man.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. That's a joke. I have no idea what it was, but at that point I was too poor to even eat Chick-fil-A. So,
Well, near-death experiences. I'm intrigued. I got interested. This is kind of I got interested in that phenomenon when I at an early age. I was sitting down. I grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries, and
sure.
like everybody my age in my age bracket. I was born in 1980, so I'm a child of the 80s. I'm Reagan, child of the 80s. That was my life back then. But we would sit on Wednesday nights. I believe it was Wednesday nights for a while, at least. We would sit on the couch at 7 o'clock. We would watch Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack hosting. And I remember, I'll never forget. They aired a segment one time, and it was about a young girl who had a remarkable near-death experience. She somehow drowned in a swimming pool, and she found herself in a tunnel after she lost consciousness. And this tunnel had beautiful colored bricks on both sides, and she was moving through it. And what a lot of people report when they have experiences like that, that's just a very rough, quick example of a fairly typical near-death experience. But they also go through a life review. Almost every time there's a life review, and it's like it's all happening at once. So what does that suggest? So they are in a place where time probably doesn't exist at least in the sense we can understand it. because a lot of the people who have these near-death experiences say that when the time is either non-existent completely, or they process it, their consciousness or their soul processes it very, very differently. Okay. And the other thing that people report is meeting a benevolent supreme being. Okay. Now, this happens, keep in mind, Jake, this happens to people of all walks of life, from all over the world, every religious belief, atheist, everyone. It happens to, no one's exempt from this. It's on average about 10% of people who either go under anesthesia or or come close to death, or they flatline, or anything like that, have a near-death experience of some kind. It also involves being having the sense of being out of their body and seeing details of things going on that it's impossible that they would be able to see, because they are completely dead. Their brain is no longer functioning. The doctors there's a testimony after testimony of doctors talking about verifying this experience. I mean, there's evidence is incredible. I mean, just unbelievable evidence that this is happening, Jake. But anyway, this goes into the science part. This leads right into science for me. Now, according to string theory, I think it's string theory. You have all these, or not string theory. It's interdimensional physics, I believe it is. One of the ideas about it that I've looked into a bit is that there's an idea of an infinite dimensional plane. So there's like, maybe where we're right next to me, there's a dimension that's like slightly smaller than an atom. There might be another dimension right underneath our nose. We might have dimensions inside of us. We might have, but the point is, it's like what they suggest is that there is an infinite. There's a lot of scientists are suggesting there's an infinite amount of dimensions. Another thing that's often reported in these near-death experiences is when after they leave their body, or they have the sensation of moving fast as or faster than the speed of light through our space. And then they come to a point, often they'll come to a point where there's a speck of light. It's very dark. There's nothing out there anymore. There's no stars. They're beyond that. And then there's a little point. Often a little point of light is often reported that becomes a sort of life force of its own, light of God, if you will. And that's what I personally believe it is. I think it's our creator, the life force of our creator. And the thing that really strikes me, people report being enveloped in the emotion of love. And it's not just love like brotherly love, like the brotherly love I have for you, or Greg, or someone I meet on the street. Okay? Anybody. Or it's not the romantic type love I have for my beautiful queen. It's something far beyond all that. And you're wrapped up. The feeling that people report is being wrapped up in that blanket. It's like a blanket almost. Telepathy is involved. And a lot of people who come back from these near-death experiences often report profound psychic abilities, or enhanced psychic abilities, and it's very remarkable. But there's definitely this interdimensional science, and maybe even some quantum physics comes into play with this. And I really think that there's a lot of crossover with spirituality and science.
So I'd like to go ahead. I'd like to say something about that, actually. One, I have heard near-death experiences in that factor. One thing I'd like to talk about is these people coming back with these psychokinesis, or some type of ability mentally. we talk about them going down this path and seeing all these flashes of life and memories and all of this just flashing by them and everything flashing by them. And they say it takes an instant, but we've learned that time is relative to where you are. And we've learned that from traveling to planets. We've learned that from traveling wherever. We've learned that from, also the effects of anesthesia. You're unconscious, and then you wake up and your surgery's done. Some of those surgeries may take, upwards of who knows how long.
Up to 12 hours.
Up to 12 hours, absolutely, and longer. That being said, we can't dismiss the fact that these people, if they go, they could be going outside of what we would see as our plane of reality and existence to that greater being, what we would call God. And while they're there and they're seeing all this go by, they're seeing multiple universes and dimensions and possibilities. And then they come back. It could very well be that they're seeing these things happen in the future because they've already seen them. They're recovering memories of things that they might have seen.
So, okay. That kind of sounds like clairvoyance to me. Do you understand specifically what clairvoyance is? I don't know how much you know about parapsychology. You're going to learn a lot about it too,
not very much, and I am learning a lot. Clairvoyance, is that
clairvoyance is all right, so here's my definition of clairvoyance.
Sure.
I'm going to try and make this as simple as I can for our listeners and for everybody. My definition of clairvoyance, or it's also called remote viewing.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I am very familiar with this. This is what our entire podcast is named after, with Project Stargate in the military.
Exactly. You've done your, I'm proud of you, son. You're doing a good job, son.
I appreciate it. So, yes.
You call me Paul, man. Call me Paul. But yeah, so my just to break it down really fast. Yeah. My definition of clairvoyance or remote viewing is one's consciousness and soul, or soul, the consciousness rather, the ability for your consciousness to transcend space and time and view objects or events. So what my parapsychologist colleagues are telling me is that they, like Dr. Barry Taff, is that one of the big ideas out there is what's happening is you're actually looking at information. You're viewing it as information, more or less. From like imagine time space being like a sort of a cosmic hard drive. So everything that's happened in the past, everything that this conversation me and you are having right now, this podcast, will always exist at least as information at minimum.
Absolutely.
So you're basically tuning in. You're using your consciousness to interact with time space to access this information. So that's my definition of clairvoyance.
And to that effect, one of the few things that I remember from high school science class was energy can. What is it? Is it matter or energy can neither be created or destroyed in any way, that the energy that it is using for us to do this and to say this and to put this through, that's always going to be out there, like you had just said. Going back to the more clairvoyance thing and seeing, precognition and all that and being able to remote view. Absolutely. I do think that could be a part of what happens here.
According to all the scientific research that's been done on clairvoyance and remote viewing, you know a little bit about Project Stargate.
Yep.
And they proved, Dr. Barry Taff proved at UCLA in their parapsychology lab, and they proved it during Project Stargate that anybody can in fact be trained to do this.
Exactly. That's actually what I was getting at there. And what I wanted to say is this would be more like not really seeing it as it's going on, but being able to see future events and maybe even have flashes of other possibilities that could happen, because you are outside the realm of what we would see as our dimension, our collective dimensions that, every being in our collective universe could see. You're outside of that, seeing it all happen, seeing the dimensions of the dead where the ghosts are, or the aliens, or whatever, crisscrossing back and forth. And
Purgatory.
Purgatory, exactly. You could be in purgatory seeing all this happen while you're trying to determine if you're going to be going, or whoever's trying to determine whether you're going to be, going up, down, or back home, and you got to be in a waiting room. You can't be in that space while that's happening. So you kind of have to be pulled out. And if you go back in, you go back in, you have these memories kind of what you've seen happening in the future or other dimensions. And that could, very well, manifest itself as deja vu type feeling. You feel like you've seen this or done this before because you've seen yourself do this and see this before. A lot of times when people talk about deja vu, they remember it. And this is just from me talking to people. I haven't actually done any research. This is just because I've experienced deja vu a couple times.
I think everybody has at one point or another. I know I have. I especially it's usually connected to people.
Well, with your deja vu, when you're there and you're in that deja vu, are you picturing this as happening in your first or third person? Because for the people I've talked to, it's usually in the third person.
Like I said, the few times that I have experienced deja vu, I don't remember that many details of it, but it was more of like an impact. It was more of a feeling I had all over my body. That's the only
Gotcha.
way I can remember describing it. And sometimes this stuff manifests in that way. Maybe it's empathy. Maybe it connects to empathy also. It could be several things at play. But the whole point of what I was getting to earlier, I want to culminate this.
Sure.
And then we can talk some more about that. But to wrap it, to sum it all up, I want to get to the bottom line here.
Yep.
When people have these near-death experiences, they all report something. Most of them report something very similar, but they're very different at the same time. And it's like they're tailored to each person. It's almost like that they're in their own little parallel dimension. What if when you have these near-death experiences, you pass through into an area they call the plateau. Father Malachi Martin, the exorcist, use that term, and I've had a lot of other parapsychologists and paranormal investigators use that term as well. And then from there, you either stay in that plateau, and I believe if you stay in that plateau, you're a ghost. Theoretically, this is just hypothetical. This is only hypothetical. Okay. Now, or you go to the next dimension. Those dimensions are collapsing. I've heard testimonies of people seeing those dimensions as they're leaving collapse. It's almost like it's like a box that folds in and up. Imagine that, like an accordion. Okay.
Yeah. So something I'd like to add to that effect. This is just because this is how my mind thinks, and I'll definitely forget this. Is those people existing in that dimension could be the only reason that dimension is there, and that dimension exists simply because they exist, and where they exist, there has to be a dimension. So when they're leaving, there's no reason for that dimension anymore.
Dude, can we go into a third segment? We don't have to. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that long if you're tired. This is fascinating, and I need to go to break.
Sure, man.
Can we go in? Can we do a third segment and come back and take a break and come back? Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. You're listening to Project Stargate Friends Research here with Jake Malcolm, my co-host, and we're talking about interdimensional stuff and near-death experiences. This is getting really, really fascinating. You really brought on the woo today, brother, man. This has been good stuff. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Project Stargate Friends Research, and I'm here with Jake Malcolm, bringing on the train of pain and the spooky woo, and even the mysterious woo. And we're just jumping into a river. I was just commenting during the break that we I feel like we're in a river and we're just going where the river's taking us. Where's the river taking us now?
Hopefully to find some damn answers for all this stuff. That's where I'm hoping.
I hope so too, man. But this river that we've been flowing in is going, we're going downstream and we're going downstream. It's going faster and faster and faster. And I feel like it was about to take us somewhere else right before the break.
Yeah, so we were talking about near-death experiences, multiverse, and multidimensional theories as well. Purgatory, what you had referred to as the plateau. Basically all the things that are a little bit outside the box that we could think about to be answers to some of these questions that we have. We were speaking a bit more about remote viewing and clairvoyance. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up where we left off. Where do you think we were going?
The sum of what, back to what, to my conclusion, I had I've had some very intimate conversations with Howard Storm. Did you ever get around to listening to that podcast? Because that came out way, way before you joined our research group.
No, I have not yet. I still need to. Wait, the one you did with him or one of his individual?
It's the only near-death experience podcast I did was with him. It was the second. Yes, I think it was the second episode.
I did watch the one with you, but that was the only one I watched on there, or listened to, rather.
Now, that's one of the interesting thing about his experience. His is one of the top ones I've ever researched. I'll preface with this. Howard was so easy to talk to. When I talked to him at some length before we recorded the podcast. And the transformation this man went through was unreal. He went from being someone who was completely atheistical, to, and also the other thing, different aspect of his prior behavior was he was really, really narcissistic. He was hateful. He ruled like a communist. He ruled his family like a communist with an iron fist. And when he had this experience, he went from being like that to from becoming he was already an art professor, and then he left that secular type of work. And he went to seminary and became a pastor. I want to say Methodist. I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that. But the transformation is real, and I believe that all this stuff takes place across many different dimensions. I believe that's what's going on here, and that right there, my friend, backs up science.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm one of those people. Much like you, I was raised in a Judeo-Christian family. And I my entire life, I've never seen why science and religion can't coexist, and why science and God can't coexist.
Amen.
It seems like the only reason it can't is because we're saying it can't. And we're just not looking for the answers, and you've got two sides of people who are too stubborn to work together. But absolutely, I think that there is something that can be both explained spiritually and scientific going on here. It's
absolutely.
Just finding the right combination of keys to unlock the door is
absolutely, man. I tell you what, man, I have felt that way for so long, because I'm seeing all, the research in a near-death experiences alone, just that, and just forget about everything else. That phenomenon alone backs up all kinds of theories, including string theory, I believe.
Absolutely. And even further into it, going back and studying a little bit of religious history as I've gotten into doing recently, the one thing we can determine is that everything is completely up to interpretation, especially time when we're talking about transcending time and space. Typically we say that the earth was created in 6 days. On seventh day, God rested. Going back again, looking at time with this and science, who is defining the days and when was that defined as a week? Because the week as we know it, didn't become 7 days until relatively recently compared to the time of creation. And if we are, 24 hours in a day here, and I should have done my research before I opened my mouth, however many hours a day on Mars, how long is a day to a supreme being creating the earth?
Exactly. I've actually expressed that idea. It's crazy you said that, man, because I've actually said stuff like that to Vince. I think Vince and I had a conversation like this one time, and we were talking about the creator and creation, and we were talking about time also, and how the time is so relative from where we are compared to where maybe God is time. Maybe time is part of God, rather, is what I meant to say. Maybe God, time, maybe that dimension, maybe everything, matter, space, time, dimensions, maybe all of it's a physical manifestation of God.
I'm not sure if you just heard that little audio glitch there. Still hear me all right?
Yeah, I hear you great, man. Loud and
Yeah.
clear.
So this is kind of something that I'm just coming up with now in my head, as you had mentioned that a theory. It could be, when they say God is in everyone, God is everywhere, God is everything. It could be that what we would define as a creator could be this energy, this white light that we see that envelops all of us, that whatever. And in order for there to be a dimension, it splits part of itself off and molds into something else that it creates. And that feeling of warmth and envelopment and love when these people talk about their near-death experiences and coming back, is that part serving whatever purpose it served or doing whatever it did and coming back to the whole of whatever this greater being is.
Wow. This is one of the most intriguing subjects I have ever looked into. And like I said, I have a family member, my uncle. I don't know if I told you this actually. Maybe I didn't. So forgive me if I didn't. But my uncle, when I was 8 years old, not long after I saw that segment on Unsolved Mysteries, my uncle Lester from Mississippi, he had a near-death experience, and it was a very similar scenario of Howard's. But what he reported, and this is now I see this scenario a lot. Okay, I want to preface with that. What he told me that he was moving really fast through this beautiful valley. It had these like golden flowers on the ground, and it's just everything was just hyper color. I don't know how else to explain it, and I don't think he really knew how to explain it either. You could tell he was struggling trying to explain some of this stuff. I remember that. And that scenario comes up a lot. The valley, I call it. There's the tunnel, there's the valley, and then there's some that are so unbelievably bizarre and wild. I mean, but then there's always these common denominators. There's a life review, and almost every time it's described as you seeing everything you did in your life, and what those actions, how they had an impact on that person, and you feel it. You experience it from yourself and them. This all happens at the same time. Can you wrap your mind around that?
That would be something where there would have to be, in order to feel those two things at once, to feel those multiple things at once, there would have to be multiple dimensions other than the three dimensions that we know for that, for sure. And the way I wrap my mind about that, around that, is going back to talking about what we talked about, purgatory, when you come out of whatever this, we'll call it this conglomerate of universes and points in time that we have crisscrossing all over, and you come out of that while you're waiting to either go back to whatever that creator, that being is, or go back into whichever reality you're going to be going into there. And that could be why some people think of reincarnation. You go back to that reality. You might go back to a different reality, a different point in time, and remember something completely different. It's very possible that could be the case of, and this is reaching a little bit. This is getting further out there, but we see in some of these pyramids carvings of helicopters and airplanes. It could be that someone from this time period that we're in right now passed away and reincarnated back. We always think of reincarnating forward. If we're coming out of what we see as time and going back in, it could be possible that someone could be reincarnated back in time and have visions of the future.
I kind of straddle the line on reincarnation, and I'll explain it real quick. I think it's possible in some circumstances that might happen for one reason or another, according to God's will. I don't know, I can't put anything past God for starters. And he's, if he is almighty, he might have some incredible reason for it. Who knows? Sure. But there is another possibility also, and I want you to consider this and just try to think about this. What if what these people are experiencing is just a simple matter of clairvoyance?
But, with all the possibilities that I've poised and put up, and that's all they are, is possibilities. So I would say that just simple clairvoyance would be equally as likely as anything that we've said tonight. Just because any of this could be extremely likely. We don't know, and that's what we're trying to figure out.
Vince, I wish you were with us tonight, brother, man. I miss you. I hope you're doing well, buddy. Man, Vince would be really enjoying this right now.
Oh, yeah.
I think and I wish, Vince is, Vince and I have some great conversations, some deeply spiritual conversations, and he's a very fascinating man. I've just really enjoyed getting to know him. Jake, he's a wonderful guy. He's very friendly, and I just really enjoy his fellowship, and I really think the world of him. But Vince, he's at some point he's interested in Buddhism, and he wants to. I don't know much about Buddhism. Just for my educational reasons, I would like to learn a little bit about it so I can understand it, what they believe. I just don't know what they believe. I don't know anything about it. At some point, he's talked about producing a podcast on our program about Buddhism. I think that'd be kind of interesting.
I think that'd be very interesting. And with their beliefs, and it would be nice to take a look from another perspective at this kind of stuff. So I think that'd be phenomenal.
Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, my program, I'll listen to anybody's perspective on religion or anything. I do not discriminate. I have friends of all religions. I've had all my whole life, and I think that there's children of God everywhere. That's just my opinion. But either way, I tell you what, man, it's a very interesting subject, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's able to come up with. It'll be really fun, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm also interested in Native American traditions. Sure. I find those extremely fascinating. I have a friend of mine named Caleb. He at some point we've talked. He knows a lot about historical mythology, and he's talking about coming on and talking about historical mythology from Nordic mythology to like Persian mythology. I just thought that in Native American mythology also, I think that'd be a really fascinating conversation.
Absolutely. We can take a look at these old mythological happenings and instances, and maybe brush over them again, and maybe reinterpret them in ways that we probably could to see if we can find any connection to what's going on now, or any similarities for that matter. So I think that would definitely be very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get into some upcoming content. Let's talk a little
Sure.
bit about that for a few minutes.
Sure.
So I've been busy looking for celebrity or guest researchers or guest new people to come bring on the program. Um, I've got a few people I'm really excited to talk about for a few minutes. The first one I want to talk about is a guy named Lloyd Auerbach. He's a parapsychologist. Um, I think my understanding, he knows Dr. Taff, Barry Taff, and what I wanted to do, Jake, and I definitely, and by all means, I want you to be heavily involved in this one, especially, so because the first segment of the podcast, I want to go through after going through his background. We're going to talk about. I want to go through every aspect of parapsychology, which includes uh, clairvoyance or remote viewing, telepathy, uh, precognition, which is I think really and truthfully that's part of clairvoyance. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but PK or telekinesis, um, death survival, which in that category you got ghosts, the possibility of ghosts rather. You got near death experiences, the possibility of reincarnation. You got all. It kind of covers the consciousness and that broad spectrum. Consciousness is kind of usually studied along with all this stuff.
Absolutely.
And then it goes into, and also hypnosis is technically considered parapsychology. So that's what parapsychology is. And what my thought was for the program is for us to go through with Lloyd Auerbach, talk about every aspect of parapsychology by the numbers, and explain and give him an opportunity to explain what they are in his words and his theory behind how they may mechanize or manifest or work in our reality. And then maybe in the next segment, maybe I was thinking we could get into some of his cases that he's investigated, some of the major cases. This guy has been at it. He's been playing ball. He's been playing ball hard for decades. He's been on a lot of TV shows. Countless TV shows, documentaries, all kinds of stuff. He's going to be on Project Stargate later this month.
I look forward to it, man. That's going to be great. Sounds like it's going to be very informative and educational as well.
Exactly, because I'm going to tell you, brother, the more I recommend, I think every paranormal investigator should consider under learning all the basics, at least learning the basics of parapsychology. So that because sometimes people think their house is haunted, I'm just using this as an example. Sometimes people think their house is haunted because they're having some poltergeist phenomena. Well, the word poltergeist is German and it means noisy spirit. Okay, that's the original term for it. But what parapsychology suggests, at least in some cases, that it's not caused by a disembodied non-corporeal spirit of some kind, but it is in fact caused by an interaction of your consciousness with matter and local area of space.
So are you saying that you could subconsciously be controlling these poltergeist activities?
That's what a lot of cases seem to point towards, yes.
I'd definitely be interested to delve deeper into that.
But there are cases that seem there definitely seems to be some sort of alien intelligence of some kind at play here.
Sure.
Some kind. But then that goes into so many different territories, including UFOs, believe it or not. A lot of people who have UFO sightings, sometimes they report poltergeist phenomenon and other psychic stuff going on in their home, even apparitions.
Yeah. It does seem like that poltergeist activity and UFO extraterrestrial activity does seem to kind of go hand in hand, especially in the areas that we've talked about, and especially with I think some stuff that we're going to talk about coming up on a future episode with a guest of ours as well. So I'm really interested to dive deeper into that.
Yeah. So, and then I got another one for you. So, okay, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yep,
You know who they are.
I do. Absolutely.
Have you heard of a guy named Ralph Sarchie?
I believe we've talked about him in the past, actually.
Yeah. So he was a New York City police officer, and I was listening to an interview of his one time, I think, with Art Bell. And this is before, not too long before he passed away, unfortunately. God rest his soul. Love Art Bell. But anyway, I was listening to his interview with Art Bell, and he said that he was investigating a case as a police officer, and one of his, my understanding is correct. He said something to the effect of that his partner who was there investigating the case, what was happening, said that this guy was possessed, and if my understanding is correct, I think that's where that set him off into sailing right into the unknown to understand the diabolical. But he worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren. He's assisted in he's a demonologist, and he performs I believe what they consider mild or minor exorcisms or something like that. He is Catholic. I don't know a whole lot about Catholicism, but that's another thing I'm very interested in learning about specifically. I'm Protestant myself per se, but I want to learn about Catholicism. It's very interesting to me. But anyway, and then later in his career, performing exorcisms and investigating diabolical hauntings and possession. He also worked with Father Malachi Martin, who was a Jesuit priest. Are you familiar with this guy?
We spoke with him as well. We did. Did he also work with the Warrens as well?
I think they did do some crossover stuff. Because I've seen some video of them sitting down talking. They knew each other at least. I can say that with certainty that they knew each other, the Warrens and Malachi Martin. But he was his assistant up until his death, and a very close friend. And Malachi became his ultimate mentor, from what I can understand. Malachi Martin wrote a book called Hostage to the Devil, and it chronicles 5 exorcisms that Malachi Martin performed when he was a Jesuit and after he left the Jesuit order, I believe, because he did leave the Jesuit order at one point. But at any rate, Ralph Sarchie, I've chatted with him a little bit over social media. He has agreed to come on our program at some point. He said he would come on, and as soon as I get some more information as to when that's going to happen, I'm going to update. I'll update you and our listeners when I have more information on that. I think that'd be a very intriguing podcast. I've been wanting to do a podcast on diabolical hauntings and possession because I think it's a very important subject. It's happening. I believe 180% that it happens, and I think that it's much more frightening. The real thing is much more frightening than what we're going to see on a movie or TV show.
Absolutely, because in the movies we we have an answer to what's going on. We sort of have an idea, but with this we don't really know, and that's why we're going to have to trust these professionals that we're going to have on the show for sure.
That's now. There's a few. I've heard a few parapsychologists suggest that possession is a telekinesis phenomenon of some kind. I really don't believe that. That's the one place I would disagree.
I would say that would be a bit far-fetched.
It would be. It really would be.
It would be absolutely far-fetched. So I wouldn't agree on that one. What it could be, I don't know. I don't have much experience reading into that. Most of what I've grown accustomed to, paranormal and demonic, would be, mostly poltergeist activity, not possessions. So, I think we should leave that one to the experts.
Well, I've done a lot of research on it, on demonology specifically. So here's some signs of possession, and this is tried and true, using the scientific method. Okay,
Sure.
so I'll preface with that.
Okay.
So usually it's marked possession. There's like three levels. It doesn't start with possession. Usually it starts with like an infestation,
Okay.
and that's where you start noticing things going on around you. Okay.
Okay.
It might be some weird synchronicities involved, and there might be some poltergeist phenomena involved. It's marked with things like that, from my understanding. The next step is oppression. Now, this is where it really starts getting serious. Okay. Um, when you're in that stage of a demonic or oppression, okay, what's happening at that point is you're having personal attacks. You're having thoughts that pop in your head from time to time, every once in a while, that might not be yours. Um, and then, and other bad things. They're attacked sometimes, or they're intimidated and tortured psychologically. And then the final stage is possession.
Okay.
And that the symptoms of possession are usually typical. Now, some of these symptoms are typical, and some of them are rare,
Hey,
but happen quite a bit.
okay.
Um, the most typical sign of demonic possession is the knowledge of events about certain individuals that they could never know. No way in heck could they know. And the ability to speak languages that they've never learned, and they don't know what they would mean. Even if they heard like somebody saying a sentence on TV of another language that they've never learned, you're not going to know it. They're not going to know what it means. You get my point?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so the ability to speak languages, that even rare languages that aren't really spoken much or anymore. Now, when we get into the more rare phenomenon that happens, this is where it really cranks up a little bit, and it can be a little dangerous. Psychological war. I find this akin to psychological warfare, and it is. It's like spiritual psychological warfare, for lack of a better term. They try to attack whether it's a exorcism or the Protestant version of it is deliverance. It's called a deliverance. Same thing, done a little bit differently, but it achieves the same result. They're equally effective.
Deliverance is done with banjos, correct?
Done with what?
Banjos, correct?
No. Funny guy. A deliverance. So yeah. Anyway, the attacks are very powerful and psychological, and that kind of goes back in with the knowledge, the intimate knowledge of people's private lives, of things that this happened. Maybe it's a sin they committed, maybe it's something that they have feel guilty about, or a traumatic event of some kind. They'll use that against them. And then there's the poltergeist phenomenon. The poltergeist phenomenon does happen. All sorts of it. Objects moving by themselves, things flying off the wall, and then in some rare cases, levitation.
So I actually, the reason I got into the paranormal research and even believing in ghosts in the first place is I'm not sure if we discussed it or not, but we'll leave it again for another time. But a very close family member of mine, actually, well, probably about as close as you can get. My father grew up rather lived in a haunted house in college. And then my mom has always been very spiritual as well, religion-wise. So I grew up, with both of those outlooks, but specifically turning to my father about he lived in a house that had some benign poltergeist activity in it, and I'll hear those stories from him and relay them, maybe even have him on here if he'll do it.
And I think that's the key. The key word you used was benign. I believe that that's what we're talking about in general when we're talking about when we're talking about PK. I think that's what it is. Now, whenever people are getting hurt, or things are like that are happening, or it's getting real violent in some one way or another. I think we might be looking at something. It's possible that we might be looking at something diabolical.
Little more on the demonic side, and this was definitely not that. This was just more mischievous than anything. But like I said, I'll give him the option to tell the story himself, because he will tell it better than me.
That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so and then you do have those more demonic scratchings and things flying off the counter, stuff like that. Things that
I've had that happen.
Yeah, things that we might see in some of our upcoming investigations that I've read about for some of the spots. So
yeah, absolutely. It happened to me in Ball Ground when I lived in that house in Ball Ground. Yeah, it happened to me several times, couple times, I think maybe twice actually. It's unnerving. The first time it happened, I didn't think a whole lot about it really. I just kind of scoffed at it and just kind of put it out of my mind. But the second time it happened, man alive, I was like, wow, there definitely looks like there's something going on in this place.
Yeah, it's funny. I can honestly say, knock on wood, that I've been doing all this paranormal research and all that for as long as I have, and I've, again, knock on wood, have not experienced any poltergeist activity. And Mark, if we could keep it that way, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Let me tell you something, brother. Safety is my number one priority, both physical and spiritual safety. When we go anytime we go out and do field research, I will pray over us, if that's okay. If that's okay with you. I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe it works according to His will for sure.
There's always a bottle of holy water in my not bug out bag, on my investigation bag. So
that's absolutely cool. You got a bug out bag.
Yay. I do.
You're so cool, bro. Man, virtual fist bump on that. That's awesome.
I think everyone should have one. Just because we do see natural disasters every day, and living where we are, well, how quickly a tornado can pop up. Sometimes you gotta grab and go.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I ever told you this. Speaking of that, I am actually I'm not an active storm spotter, but I am a certified storm spotter for National Weather. I have it registered with my county. I haven't gotten around to it because of all the chaos that's been going on with illnesses and stuff like that. But I've been certified for a little while, actually. I can look at Doppler radar and tell you what's going on in a thunderstorm, how intense it is with the velocity and reflectivity. I know all about supercells, quasi-linear convective systems, hurricanes, all the different types of the three types of tornadoes, rather. There's actually three different types of tornadoes. So I've learned a lot. I've been in several tornadoes myself, ranging from EF0 to EF2 in intensity. EF2 is a very dangerous tornado. It's a significant tornado and a very dangerous tornado.
Sure, I'm sure. I don't think there's any tornado that I would consider one to be safe, but yeah, absolutely. So I've got my bug out bag, and I've got my ghost bag. So the ghost bag has a little bug out in case a ghost get inside of it with the holy water and rosary.
Let's do it next time. Hey, next week Let's
Yep.
do it. Let's do something next week. Maybe next Monday or Tuesday or something night or something. Let's do another one. Let's do another podcast, and maybe we can go through, or both of us can go through our equipment and describe
Sure.
it and talk about it, and maybe you could teach me a few things.
Absolutely.
That'd be fun, man. I would really
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
You got it, man.
Man, this has been a great night, man. I really appreciate you going into extra innings here. This has been great, man. I appreciate it. It's been a very intriguing conversation and some great research.
It's been a great show, man. I enjoy being here, and I always do. So I look forward to the future and getting out there and getting some more evidence. And I'll put those EVPs up and send you a link.
Okay, that's cool. So we'll please remember also, listeners, for all you listeners out there, if you would just do us a big favor and hit that like and subscribe button, and you can also put it on for notifications. It's going to be right down there to you, right down to you. And it'll help us out a lot. Share it with you can share us on social media. Also, check out our Project Stargate Fringe Research Facebook page. And we are going to start, like I said, we're going to start working on our website here pretty soon. And we're going to be posting some articles and pictures and put some spooky woo you can look at anytime you want to. So that'll be fun.
It'll be better than any Netflix, Hulu, anything you'll see on there. That's for sure.
Absolutely, brother. Man, this has been a great night, and I appreciate all of you listening and checking out our research. If you ever want to reach out to us, please check us out on our Facebook page again, Project Stargate Fringe Research, or at Fringe Mark. I think you can find it that way as well. And you're listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research. Thank you for listening, and have a great night.